Home and Security editor Mark White has this exclusive report.
All around the port of Calais, even in broad daylight, these migrants are everywhere, looking for transport across the channel. They're opportunists, often young African men who have no money to buy a place on a small boat, opting instead to clamber aboard trucks. Through the security fence, this young man is trying to stay out of sight next to a roundabout, waiting for the moment lorries slow down here in the hope of jumping aboard. While UK politicians are fixated with the small boats crisis, politicians here say the lorry crisis is just as bad.
There are clearly those who can afford a boat trip, but many others who have no money, who see the lorries that pass through the port in their thousands as the only realistic way of getting to the UK.
And as bad as things are during daylight, it's at night when it truly gets crazy here. We're on our way to a lorry park on the outskirts of Calais, where we're told that after dark, migrants appear looking for a suitable trailer to stow away inside for the journey to the UK. You don't have to look far to spot the migrants. They're everywhere here. We film as one clambers into the back of this lorry, disappearing out of sight. Every time a new truck parks up here, within seconds they're swarming around, checking the doors, probing for weak spots to get inside. Those we spoke to are from Sudan. They're here night after night.
I have 2 months here.
2 months?
Yeah.
Trying every night?
Yes.
And do they discover you on the lorries? Do they find you?
Yeah. I go to port, security take me. I go to port, like this.
Every day?
Yeah.
Wow. And you're just going to keep trying until you get to the UK?
Yeah.
Suddenly, the migrants are on the run, scattering as an unmarked police vehicle enters the lorry park. But talking to these officers, they tell us they're completely overwhelmed by the scale of the migrant problem here. And despite the extra money from the UK, they say they don't have the resources to make a meaningful impact on both the small boats and lorry crisis. Quite often when the migrants try to get in the back of these lorries, they end up damaging them, cutting the guide cables, or sometimes even cutting their way through the roof. So what you find is that some of the lorry drivers do this. They just leave their back door open so that people can see right down inside the lorry. They see it's empty. There's no point in getting into that lorry because they're going to be found out. Migrant after migrant tell us the same story. Like Majid here, it's London they're determined to reach. And you will keep trying to get to London?
London, yes. I go to London.
Within minutes, Majid and his friends are around the latest lorry to arrive. But the driver sees them and tries telling them there's no point in climbing aboard as he's heading to Belgium. It's clear they don't believe him, and as he pulls out of the lorry park, unbelievably, just visible on the roof here is 15-year-old Majid. When we catch up with the lorry on the motorway, the driver has discovered Majid and another migrant, pulling over as they jump off. They're dicing with death. Migrants have been injured and killed on these roads, but that doesn't put them off, and they're more determined than ever to reach the UK. Mark White, GB News, Calais.
Well, Mark's in the studio with us now. I mean, look, this is an increasingly difficult situation. If the French say they can't deal with it, and we're paying them a lot of money to deal with it, no wonder it's getting even worse over here.
It's just so multifaceted, I think, in terms of the challenge that they're facing. Small boats over about a 100-mile stretch of coastline that requires to be guarded, and then those sneaking aboard the lorries, and they're doing it around Calais, they're doing it around Boulogne, further inland, even up in Belgium and lorry parks there. It's very difficult to try to guard against. It takes a lot of resources, and those French police officers that we spoke to they said they were overwhelmed, that they could turn up on a patrol, but then you know, they scatter. And then as soon as they go away, they know that the migrants are back trying to get into the back of lorries. It's not a new phenomenon. It's been happening for years. But what we've been able to show is it's as bad as ever. In fact, local politicians say it's worse than ever. It's also an issue in terms of the danger, because quite a few migrants have been injured or killed in recent months doing this type of thing, like young Majid, just 15 years old, on the roof of that lorry as it left the car park, you know, just completely reckless.
And I mean, you spoke to them, you met them. I mean, do they really believe that, you know, the streets of London are paved with gold?
Yeah.
What do they think is waiting for them?
That's exactly it, and they do. They think that they're going to have a much better standard of life. None of the lads that we spoke to in the lorry parks tried to pretend that they were fleeing, you know, for their lives and that they were asylum seekers. It was all about making a better life, clearly economically, for themselves in London. London was the one place they kept repeating that's where they wanted to go, and they're determined to do it. I mean, this young lad, Majid, for 2 months he'd been trying to get 2 months to get night after night. He gets discovered, then gets kicked out of the port, and he just goes and tries it again. Even that same night, he goes and tries it again. But they know the more often they try, eventually, one of these times he will get through. Might take them a lot of attempts, but...
And how do, with the lorries, I mean, are they hiding underneath the lorries? You said you saw him on top of a lorry. Do they ever get inside?
Yeah.
And what do the drivers think of this?
Well, I mean, the drivers are clearly furious in some regards because they get fined if they have migrants in the lorries. What often happens is the guide wires along the articulated lorries that have the kind of, you know, the canvas sides. So they cut the guide wires, you pull up the canvas side, get in there, and then glue them back together. So a cursory inspection of the guide wires, it looks as though, you know, it's not been touched. They carve their way in through the roof as well, which is why Majid was on that roof, and jumped down into the lorry itself. Unless you look on the roof, you wouldn't know that that had happened. And others, they just, you know, try and pull open the back doors. So, you know, it's very difficult. The chances are, of course, as I say, the checks in the port will discover them. But not everyone, because not 100% of the lorries are checked. So they can, if they persevere, get through, and that's why they keep trying.
OK, Mark, for now, thanks very much.